Hello, I'm Super Orange Cat here today with a covering Toonami's ratings from this past Saturday, January 22nd, 2022. Let's start with the top of the block. At the top of the block, we have Blade Runner Black Lotus at a .09. Then we have the Assassination Classroom at a .09. Following that, we had Made in Abyss at a .09. One Piece comes back onto the block with a .08 and a .07. Naruto Shippuden at a .06 and a .05. And we end Toonami with Cowboy Bebop at a .03. Overall, this was a letdown of a week because this last few weeks we started when we hit the new year, we started to kind of start building a bit more hype onto Toonami again. Toonami stuff started to trend again, and also the fact that I think, especially with Assassination Classroom coming back, getting Made in Abyss put on the block, and getting One Piece back on the block, there seemed to be a bit more genuine excitement back on Toonami, and I'm kind of surprised the ratings ended up this low this week because last week was like actually a step in the right direction. Things were up. Multiple shows were at over a .1. This week, not a single show even hit a .1. And the buck starts and stops with Blade Runner Black Lotus at that .09. That's 300 slower, so losing about a quarter of its rating from the previous week. I think we're starting to hit the downswing. We're starting to get toward the end of Blade Runner Black Lotus. I believe February 5th will be the season, perhaps series finale of Blade Runner Black Lotus on Toonami. And reason why, not one other thing to point out just how bad Blade Runner Black Lotus was the fact that it actually did get built on by Assassination Classroom. Last week, Assassination Classroom actually kind of had a bit of a disappointing rating on the block, and it got a .09, which is the exact same number Blade Runner Black Lotus did, but fractionally it did better, and you can tell that with Showbuzz Daily. Showbuzz Daily actually physically ranks in order the highest rated cable shows of the night. I forgot the exact number, but Blade Runner Black Lotus was like 30 and Assassination Classroom was like 28, which means that Assassination Classroom did have very, very slightly higher ratings than Blade Runner Black Lotus. If I recall, this is the second separate time that Blade Runner Black Lotus has been built on, first time by Assassination Classroom. And again, when you throw all that money, all that investment, and I feel like they probably put more money into this than they did into Fana, especially with some of the bigger names involved. Fana was just basically, okay, we got production IG and we came together and made this anime. For Blade Runner Black Lotus, first you had to pay licensing. I don't know if I don't think Warner Media has the rights to Blade Runner. They might. If they do, that's not a problem and there's no money there. But if they don't, that's money to spend. They went all out with the soundtrack, which is hilarious because that was like the one thing we knew about Blade Runner and Black Lotus until like a month before it debuted was it will have a great soundtrack. We got Elisa Cara to do the theme for it, and no one really gives a shit who Elisa Cara is. I bet most of you guys don't even know who the hell that is. I had to look her up too, but apparently she's someone who's huge in pop, and of course that comes with a pretty price tag. That's money. And like all these different things, motion capture costs money, all these different things come together where Fana did not necessarily have to spend money, which makes the fact that Blade Runner Black Lotus doing worse than Fana did really concerning. And Assassination Classroom, I guess you could say, I mean, if you build on the show in front of it, even that .09, I have to say it had a good week. And then now you have Made in Abyss, which had a decent debut at a .1 last week at a .09. That's it's one of those things you're just taking what's given in front of you. And fractionally, Made in Abyss did do lower than Blade Runner Black Lotus and Assassination Classroom, so it did not build, but it basically retained extremely well from those two shows. So props for that to do. And Made in Abyss is a show 2 episodes in, I'm already falling in love with. I I could go on for hours. Well, not hours. That's too much for 2 episodes, which is like what 40 something minutes of material. I'm going for a long time about how great that show is so far and how I'm just so excited to dig down deeper into that. And right now, I know it's like 20 something days into this whole year. If I had to rank top moments of 2022, it will be hard to find something to overtake Made in Abyss being on the block so far. Unless like Jesus Christ himself comes down and has like a 30-minute power hour on Toonami. And for some reason, he chooses like Toonami and not like ESPN or whatever. That would be like the only thing right now that could probably overtake that. And then you have One Piece. A lot of people, I'm pretty sure, excited to hear what my opinions are. I don't really pay much attention to One Piece. I'm fully aware of its massive status, it being, for the longest time, probably the biggest anime in the whole world. Right now, I'd argue it might be number 2 now behind Demon Slayer with how absolutely on fire Demon Slayer was when it even first just came out, and definitely now. Like, look, it was trending for like almost a whole week on like Twitter, people complaining about Nezuko having boobs. If you're spending a whole week complaining about a character having boobs, you know you've made it, especially on American Twitter. Now, Japan, they're probably like, why are these Americans complaining about? But I think that's hilarious. But again, back to One Piece, 0.08, 0.07, not as good retention as something like Made in Abyss had, but I mean, you take what you're given. And One Piece definitely was not a detriment to the block, which was an issue way back in its previous run on the Adult Swim version of Toonami from like the mid 2010s. So I will say it was a reasonably good debut for One Piece back onto Toonami. I think it did the numbers it could do right now. After that, you have Naruto 0.06, 0.05. I've talked about Naruto. It's basically there just to fill up space. And honestly, when it fills up space, it still does okay in ratings. And then you have one Cowboy Bebop. Honestly, I think at this point that live action show just absolutely killed Cowboy Bebop as like an IP. Because honestly, at this point, when someone sees that like Cowboy Bebop's on Toonami, there's some fraction of people that probably think they're referring to the live action version and not the, actual anime. The actual anime will probably still always stand as a classic. Problem is, when you talk about Cowboy Bebop, it's gotten to the point where you kind of have to mention that live action reboot. Kind of the same thing with Death Note. Like when someone mentions Death Note, you could talk about the anime, how amazing it was, how like it became this formative anime for a lot of people. But again, you're like only 2 steps of separation from talking about when they had an edgy white kid from Seattle have the Death Note, and you have like grunge music being played very slowly and edgy. Unfortunately, this was not that long after Twilight, so there was this bizarre, at least there was this perception that there was this massive market for, edgy white kids from Seattle doing stuff. Which, if you remember that era, if you were paying attention to pop culture, that era was a disturbingly large category of things at that time, and fortunately, it's kind of died out at this point. It was, for a lot of people, it's basically the American version of the isekai boom of like the 2010s in anime. Everything being vampire, cloudy, dark, edgy white kids from Seattle. That was like the late 2000s, early 2010s version of that here in the United States. But ultimately, those are Tommy ratings. Again, pretty disappointing week. I don't think we're going to get a new show announcement this week. If we do, tomorrow is the absolute latest we get it. I saw somewhere where they're already penciling in 2 One Piece Swap episodes for each of the next 2 weeks, which is a strong implication that slot's not going to change, which probably would be the first slot that would change if we got a new show. So I expect the next 2 weeks to have this exact same schedule, which if it changes, I'll let you know if we get a new show announcement, which absolute latest would be tomorrow for this week. If there's no announcement next tomorrow, then it's going to be the same schedule Saturday night. Leave your comments, leave your opinions down below. I am the Super Orange Cat, and that is all.